Great Rivers Land Trust was established in 1992, and our focus area here in Illinois has been a stretch along the Mississippi River, and at Pere Marquette at the upper end of that is the confluence of the Illinois and Mississippi rivers, and at the lower end of where we work is the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. So it's a really unique area in that you have so many big rivers coming together, and this kind of situation only exists very few places in the world. One of the things that the Land Trust was really focusing on is maintaining the scenic quality along this river road stretch, along with the natural community that's associated with that ecologically. And one of the steps along the way was to have this area designated as a scenic byway. It was the first national scenic byway in the state of Illinois. And we're standing at the site of where the Illinois American Water Company once had a water treatment facility. And what they did for over 100 years is they would draw water from the Mississippi River, filter it, sell the clean water to the people of Alton and the surrounding communities, and then the sediment that they filtered out went back into the river where it came from. And they'd literally been doing that for over 100 years. Flood of '93 came along and destroyed their building, so they had to start over. And they built a new facility above the bluffs, above any future floods, on top of the hill. But after they got the plant built, the EPA stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. You're going to have to build these lagoons that will allow material to settle out. You'll have to dredge that out, load it into trucks, and haul this material, dirt, to the landfill and bury it. This process, or the facility, was going to cost approximately $27 million to build and close to $1 million a year to maintain. The water company pointed out to the EPA that there was a group here in the community that had been doing watershed planning on the Piasa Creek watershed, and that group was Great Rivers Land Trust. And the water company proposed funding the implementation of this watershed plan. It would reduce sediment coming into the river 2 to 1 compared to what the water company was going to put in with its water treatment facility, and that they would contract with the Land Trust. The water company agreed to pay $4.1 million over a 10-year period. The Land Trust achieved our goal of 6,600 tons in the 6th year, and now in our 10th year, we're probably going to hit double the original mark that we wanted to. But one of the significant points of this project is that we're working with a private company, and the money that they put into this project, since it is private dollars, can be matched with other foundations and government grants and program funds. So instead of being a $4.1 million project, it's closer to being an $8 or $9 million project. It has also allowed us to do some riparian corridor protection, because as a land trust, our focus is land protection. So the water company agreed to allow part of that money to be used for easement and land acquisition along the main riparian corridor. This is called Camp Warren Levis, and this has been a Boy Scout camp here in the Godfrey community for over 80 years. The centerpiece of the camp was a 40-acre lake. But over the years, this lake began to silt in. So as they built these subdivisions, all the material flushed into the lake. And over time, the lake got shallower and shallower until it was only like a foot deep in most areas. So they're talking about selling the whole camp. And the Land Trust wanted to see it protected, wanted to see it preserved, but we didn't have the money. We were talking in the millions of dollars to buy it. If you'll give us a conservation easement on the entire 253-acre campsite, we'll in turn restore your lake, and you can stay here, and you can still do all the scouting activities. You just can't develop the land ever. And they agreed to that. And as part of the Piasa Creek watershed project then, we used the money to excavate 140,000 cubic yards of sediment from the lake bed. In the end, we reconstructed the lake. It took us a couple of years to do it, but it's now approximately 20-foot depth over the whole thing. The Boy Scouts are back to using it. As a matter of fact, the first year after we restored the lake, participation at the camp tripled, and it's just revitalized the whole campsite. They can use the whole facility for scouting purposes from now until Kingdom Come, and they're satisfied. The Land Trust is satisfied that we protected a large tract of land at a fraction of what it would have cost to buy it through this conservation easement, and it still holds true with the mission of the sediment control effort in the Piasa Creek watershed. And as we're looking more in depth into it, we've come to find out there was underground railroad activity at the Boy Scout camp and up and down the Rocky Fork Creek Valley. which is an offshoot of the Piasa Creek watershed. We wrote a grant and did an archaeological study and brought in the Center for American Archaeology to do the archaeological research. Plus we started working with local historians. We're right on the river between Illinois and Missouri being a slave state, and the runaway slaves would come to Illinois, and they were told to take the first stream north of Alton, which was the Piasa Creek. And up the Piasa Creek, it branched off to Rocky Fork Creek, which was a steep wooded valley, and a lot of the land there was owned by sympathetic white landowners, and they allowed the runaway slaves to stay, and they built homes in this secluded valley, and they eventually bought land from the sympathetic white landowners until a small black community developed in this area, and they continued to live there for decades. And the Rocky Fork Creek was eventually designated as a Underground Railroad Network to Freedom site, one of only 7 in the state of Illinois. What you have behind me here is a replica of the small stone buildings that still exist down in the valley. They're similar to this. As a matter of fact, the same stone that was used to build this little monument came from Rocky Fork Creek and was transported here with the help of the descendants of these same runaway slaves that made their home in that valley. We're also going to have a kiosk, an informational kiosk that tells the Underground Railroad story of the people who lived in the Rocky Fork Creek Valley, and then also how it's tied together with the bigger Piasa Creek watershed project in this. And then it pulls together all the partners that have also had a role in this, whether it was the Land Trust or the Boy Scouts or Principia College, Lewis and Clark College, and just local historians that have all worked together to make this big picture happen.